It's funny you mentioned that because the topic that my son wanted to talk about was a guy named, or a kid named Cameron Herrin. You know who that is?
I've heard the
Cameron
name.
Herrin. It's fairly recent. This kid just got sentenced. He was 21 years old, street racing, when he struck a woman and her child, killed him during a street race. So he's driving down the road, racing another car, and there's a breakdown down here of it, of the timeline down here. It's on one of these. But basically, he swerved. The other person swerved, got in an accident. He hits this mother and her daughter on the side of the road or whatever, and they both die. So he was going, I think, 102 miles an hour or something, according to the investigation. And so in terms, it was an accident. Now, he was obviously doing in commission of a crime because he's street racing, whatever. So he just got sentenced, like, recently. I think this is, like last week, to 24 years prison. 24 years is a long time for a young kid, man. And that's his face. Let's look on his face right there. I mean, that's when they said it, boy, he was like, fuck me, is what was coming out of his mouth. But so right now, and I've got another, this ties into another thing that I want to talk about. But right now people are coming out on the internet trying to defend him and say that it's too much. 24 years is too much. He was young. He made a mistake. It was an accident. You know, obviously he's not maliciously intent to harm anybody. That's really not what the law is about.
Did he run from the? Did he flee the scene?
No,
or did
he didn't flee the scene.
he stayed there?
Yeah, I mean, you know, his car was wrecked. It was.
Was he drunk?
No, he was street racing. That is, that's what it was. He was actively. I mean, he was just racing, and then there was.
Well, you know what that's about.
Yeah, it was.
You know what that sentence is about.
She was just pushing her daughter. So right there, the Mustang topped 100 miles an hour moments before the crash, rapidly decelerating to 30 and 40 miles per hour at the time of impact. So yeah, I mean, obviously he knew it was going to happen when once it started going south. It happened pretty quick.
What time of day was it?
I'm imagining that it was definitely daytime. I mean, not too many women go out there to push a fucking 1-year-old in a stroller down the road in the middle of the night.
I mean, some people have to go shopping.
I'd have to find the other article that shows.
I'm just curious because
but this was in 2018 that this happened,
right,
in Ohio.
Wow.
So he's just now being sentenced for this.
That's awful.
They didn't know the judge apparently.
No,
he's getting 24 years.
No,
but there's people standing up saying that it's too long. That he's young. That they're pretty much just for him 24 years. He's getting out at 45. If it does the entire sentence.
Well, the other part about that.
The other part of that is that they have no life. Kill a kid, and the kid's mom.
Well, and I will also. He's not doing the full 24 years. I mean, not to.
Dude, he might not come out alive at all. You just don't know.
He's a non-violent offender, and ain't nobody gonna fuck with him in jail. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
there'll be a couple assholes, but he'll be all right. So he's going to is he going to federal prison? Or is he going to state prison?
I imagine
big
that 24 years he's going to federal prison. I would imagine so. They usually do a state prison that long, but
federal prison is no joke.
Yeah, I don't think it says here. Yeah, it doesn't say. It just says prison.
Yeah, I mean,
But so they're coming out and they're signing a petition to try to get his sentence lowered, which brings me to the co-topic, which is petitions. Why do we have them? They don't do anything. It's completely useless. You can get 10 billion signatures. No one's going to change anything.
They sometimes the only time I've ever seen them be useful is in recall votes against elected officials. That's the only thing I've ever seen them actually accomplish. Outside of that, no, I've never seen them do anything.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
And not only that, but at this point, I mean, what
good's it do?
A bunch of signatures on a piece of paper. I mean, they could all be made up. They could all be faked. People don't even sign papers anymore. If you were somewhere and somebody asked you to sign a petition, would it even matter? Look, I have to sign out from work every day. you couldn't distinguish what I put on that piece of paper from any scribble that any child could make with a crayon at any point in their life. I mean, you know, I don't know. Feel for the kid. I'll say this. I'll say this is I definitely, when I was probably around his age, I drove down the highway in a Nissan 240Z, which was the prelude to the current, I guess, 320Z or 300Z, whatever, the Nissan fastest sports car they make. I drove it. It was a 1973 Nissan 240Z. I drove it 160 miles an hour down the highway. Obviously, anything that had gotten in my way, I would not have been able to stop. One other time in my life, and I've totaled 3 cars. One into a light pole, one the thing that I mentioned, and then what was the other one? If I can remember, I know it's 3. And then I have I drove through a rest stop parking lot one time, probably about 70 miles an hour. I pulled off a rest stop, and I realized I didn't want to stop. I wanted to catch the people. I thought I was using it to get around around traffic, and I whizzed through and it was a very busy rest stop parking lot. And I went through about 70 miles an hour. I always think to myself, I look back on that and I was like, man, if anybody had been walking, any kid or whatever, somebody walking their dog or whatever, had been going through that parking lot, and it was extremely busy. There were lots and lots of cars in it. There were lots of people in it. If anybody had been walking through there, I would have mowed them down, no doubt. And I do think about that. And I think about all the different dumb shit that I've done in my life. So I try to be sympathetic. I don't get to make the judgment. I didn't hear the case. I wasn't there at the trial. I know what it's like to be surprised by what the judge decides to do.
I worked with a kid when I was probably about 20, 21 years old. And I worked with a kid. I think he was 18 at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And where it happened right by my mom's house, actually, where I grew up. There was a hill. You come up over the hill, and there was like a merge from another road that kind of went there. And there was a light. They eventually put a light because people just kept getting in fucking accidents, right? So they eventually put a light, which if you're flying up the hill anyway, sometimes you're too late to even see the damn light. But this kid, man, he was coming up there in his truck, and he, I don't know if he blew the light or it was yellow or whatever, but he ended up T-boning a girl in a car, and she ended up dying. And, you know, he got a little fucked up, and I want to say he was 18 when it happened, and he ended up getting vehicular manslaughter, and I think he did a year in jail. He did a little bit of time in jail. He didn't do 24 years, but he also wasn't in the commission of what would be considered a commission of a crime.
Here's what I don't understand about it, just in terms of sentencing in general. We've had the conversation about the bank robber guy that I used to study and look up to. You
9
looked
years,
him up.
yeah.
He got 9 years. He robbed like 10 banks. Somewhere in the vicinity of 10 banks. He got 9 years for robbing 10 banks. This kid raced somebody, which is wrong. But what I believe they are trying to do, and it's not right to do this, but they're trying to send a message to all the kids out there that are street racing, which I think is a big deal. I've encountered it a couple times where I've driven up on scenes where I was like, what the fuck is going on here? What is happening? And I see a big crowd of people, and they're all driving around, and they've glorified it in the movies. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm against movies, because I'm certainly not. I think they're entertaining. I love to watch them. I love to go to them. One of my favorite things is to sit and watch a good movie. I love horror movies. I love suspense movies. I love my all-time favorite movie, Braveheart. I've watched it a million times. But they've glorified racing. Certainly, I've never watched any of those Fast and Furious movies, but I've seen the commercials for them. I know how popular they are. They made, I think, a dozen of them at this point. So these kids are seeing that and they think that that's something that they want to do. And I'm sure there's a lot of bravado involved. And I know people have been drag racing against each other. I've raced against people that I know driving down the highway.
Right.
Many times I've been driving opposite a friend of mine or somebody I know, even a girlfriend, and being like, all right, let's see. And we slowly start speeding up and we start trying to act like I've even rammed into people that I know. And we didn't actually touch, but we could have easily. And we're like done. We get back home. We're like, man, we had to have been within centimeters of each other. We were so close to hitting. And if we had hit, who knows what happens.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do I think it's excessive? Based on what I know, yeah, that's excessive. That, to answer your son's question, 24 years for man, I get it. He killed somebody, and I know that that's it. You can't change what has happened, but it is it's not. I look at the intention. When I look at a crime, is there any way that an 18-year-old kid, you think about a fraternity where somebody drinks themselves to death in front of their friends. Somebody died. Did they mean for that? Did they know at the beginning of the night when they were all hanging out, they were all having fun, and they were all drinking, and they're like, drink, 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 and the guy's slamming shots, and they're like, I drink myself into oblivion now, all the time, without even knowing.
Oh, wow. That's 6 years shy of the maximum sentence for vehicular homicide.
I gotta say, what I hope happens, and what I think will happen, and again, I have a lot of experience with being in court, being arrested, not ever, being a lawyer and not knowing the law in that way, and what I know is that those kinds of things have a way of sorting themselves out. There are avenues that he can pursue and that people can pursue that will potentially bring that sentence down. People will get, if there are people that are out there that will research that. Obviously, the family of the people that were murdered will be upset. They'll feel like it wasn't enough. They'll be like 24 years for the death of my 3-year-old child and his mother. That's not enough. And then there's people who are going to be like, man, he's 18. He made a mistake. So, yeah, I think it sorts itself out. I'm free. I look at myself. The last time I got arrested, it's a miracle that I got out.
And just imagine being 21 and knowing you're going to be in there until you're 45.
You're not, though. He's not going to be there until he's 45. He's not going to be there until he's 45. He'll get out before then. Hey, you know what? You know what he can do? Look, he's
going to appeal it.
This is what I would say to you if I'm talking to you. If I could talk directly to the guy, this is what I would say to you. I'd be like, all right, man. Look, here's the deal. You fucked up huge. You killed somebody. So, here's what you can do now. You've been sentenced to this. Make every single moment of your life about improving yourself. You will get out at some point, and you will have an opportunity to live your life. Try as hard as you can to reach out to the father of that child and the mother, and try as hard as you can to atone for what you've done. I've done horrible things in my life. I've suffered horrible consequences as a result of the things that I've done. You can come back from it, from anything. Nelson Mandela, you know who that is?
Yep.
How many decades did he spend in prison?
A long time.
He didn't even do anything. He was arrested for trying to stand up for other people's rights. And he ultimately became the president of his country.
Yeah.
You can come back. All I'm saying is don't give up.
So
To this kid, what I would say, if it was my own son, because my son, look, he's headed off to college. My son is 18. He's headed off to college. And I know he does not have the slightest idea about what he's about to encounter. I tried to talk to him about some of it, and he was like, yeah, what do you know? You don't fucking know. You're a moron. You're an idiot. I'm going to go there. I don't do any of those things. I'm like, look, man, the people that I met in college that had never drank a drop of alcohol in their lives are the people that had the worst alcohol-related drunkennesses that I'd ever seen because they had no idea what they were doing.
Right.
And so I would just say, man, same thing I would look at my son and say, if I was there was glass between me and my son, and he had been arrested for something that he never anticipated he'd be involved in his life. He's already totaled a car. He's already totaled one. He accidentally was driving down the road. The sun got in his eyes, and he smashed into a car going about 70 miles an hour and fucked the car up, and I think fucked the girl up a little bit. She didn't have to go to the hospital, but I mean, you're sitting in a car and somebody wails into you. So learn from what happened.
So
become a better person. Try as hard as you can to atone for what you did wrong. You can come back.
how do you feel about the other kid that was involved, the other kid he was racing? They were both having the same legal.
Okay.
They both faced the same
There's more
charges,
to the
vehicular
story.
homicide. And they, up until a week before the trial was set to begin, they went their separate legal ways. The other kid takes a plea deal. He pleads guilty to 2 vehicular homicide charges and misdemeanor racing for a sentence of 6 years in Florida State Prison, followed by 15 years of probation. Same crime. Now, he didn't crash into the mother and child,
Right.
but he's still charged with the same
Hey, man.
crime, but he took a
Did
deal.
he testify against his friend?
No, I don't think there was any testifying against him. I think it was
Well,
just
when you take a plea deal, the only reason they offer you a plea deal
to save the trial.
is to prevent you from going to trial, but also usually to have you turn evidence or testify against the other person.
Maybe.
In a lot of cases, I don't know.
Yeah,
Again,
I mean,
you're hitting me with this brand new. I don't know anything about this dude.
Yeah.
I've heard the name. I didn't know what he was involved in. I didn't know exactly what happened. I'm not going to read up on it because, quite honestly, it's too far away from the things that I'm trying to work on in my life to make my life better. There are a lot of cases like this. There are a lot of people out there that have hit and killed people with a vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
One of them's running for governor of California.
Exactly. She didn't do a day.
0 time.
Not a day.
Same crime.
Well, she wasn't racing somebody. I don't think. She was racing the clock. I mean, when we're driving somewhere, we're always going somewhere. We're always trying to
True.
get,
It's wild.